It was supposed to be a regular flight. One man, one seat, one moment. But what happened in seat 1A that morning would unravel more than just one woman's ego. It would expose a secret buried deep inside a billion-dollar scandal, ignite a federal sting operation, and leave an entire plane stunned into silence. Elijah King wasn't looking for attention. He wasn't making a scene. He wasn't even saying a word. He boarded quietly. Black hoodie, worn jeans, leather backpack slung over one shoulder. Just another passenger, or so it seemed. But Amanda Whitmore didn't see just another passenger. She saw a threat, a disruption, a man who didn't belong. And the moment Elijah stopped at row 1, she turned her head with an irritated sigh. It was supposed to be a regular flight. One man, one seat, one moment. But what happened in seat 1A that morning would unravel more than just one woman's ego. It would expose a secret buried deep inside a billion-dollar scandal, ignite a federal sting operation, and leave an entire plane stunned into silence. Elijah King wasn't looking for attention. He wasn't making a scene. He wasn't even saying a word. What happened next will shock you. But before we dive into this story, comment below where you are watching from, and if you enjoy this tale with an unexpected twists and moment of joy, don't forget to subscribe. The Elijah King boarded quietly. Black hoodie, worn jeans, leather backpack slung over one shoulder, just another passenger, or so it seemed. But Amanda Whitmore didn't see just another passenger. She saw a threat, a disruption, a man who didn't belong. And the moment Elijah stopped at row 1, she turned her head with an irritated sigh. "You're in the wrong seat," she said, without even a glance at his ticket. Elijah looked down at his boarding pass, calm and steady. 1A, he replied. She rolled her eyes. "That's impossible. You must be economy." Elijah didn't argue. He simply sat down. Amanda's lips tightened. She pressed the call button. A ding echoed in the cabin. People glanced over. Row 2 watched with quiet amusement. Amanda was loud enough to make sure everyone knew she didn't believe this black man could be sitting in first class beside her. "There's been a mistake," she said to the flight attendant. "This man doesn't belong here." The attendant scanned his boarding pass, checked the manifest, then smiled politely. "Mr. King is in the correct seat, ma'am." Amanda's mouth opened slightly. She wasn't used to being corrected. "Are you sure?" she asked. "He's not some employee flying on perks? He bought this seat?" Elijah turned a page in the book he had just opened. He didn't even blink. Amanda leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Did you pay for this with your own money?" Elijah looked up, just once, then back to his book. Her voice rose. "I work hard for my position. I earn my seat. People like him shouldn't be allowed to just slide in." That whisper? Loud enough for row 2 to hear. A man in 2A raised an eyebrow. A woman in 3C turned her head. One of the crew members stiffened. Elijah remained calm. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and tapped a contact labeled Ice Fire. HQ. The call connected instantly. "Yeah, it's me. Boarding now. Minor delay. Can you flag Amanda Whitmore? Seat 1B. We may have a situation." He hung up. Amanda laughed. "Flag me? What is this? A prank? You think you can scare me by pretending to be someone?" The man in 2A chuckled softly. "You really don't know who he is?" Amanda turned to him. "Should I?" He sipped his drink. "You will." The flight took off 20 minutes later. Amanda kept side-eyeing Elijah, expecting him to be removed mid-air. Elijah simply closed his eyes. He didn't need to do anything. The wheels were already in motion. At 8:12 a.m., the flight attendant returned. This time, her tone had changed. "Mr. King," she said softly, "the pilot has received a message from Homeland Security. You've been cleared." Amanda leaned forward. "Cleared? What do you mean cleared? For what?" The attendant turned to her, lowered her voice, and whispered something that made Amanda's entire face drain of color. She sat back, silent, stunned. Who was Elijah King? That's what everyone wanted to know. Who was this man that Homeland Security would message a pilot mid-flight just to say he's cleared? Elijah King was no ordinary traveler. His full name, Dr. Elijah Marcus King, Director of Strategic Intelligence, ICEFIRE, an agency so classified it didn't officially exist, a hybrid unit operating in the shadows between Homeland Security, NSA, and Interpol, tasked with dismantling deep-cover domestic threats. Amanda Whitmore wasn't just a loud, entitled passenger. She was a person of interest in an ongoing investigation, an employee of a pharmaceutical company under scrutiny for unethical testing and laundering hush money. Elijah wasn't randomly seated next to her. He was placed. As Amanda fumed, thinking she was exposing a man who didn't belong, she was unknowingly confessing on a federal surveillance flight. Every word she'd spoken, every assumption, every racially charged insult, recorded. Row 2 had ICEFIRE operatives seated and listening. Cameras tucked into cabin panels were watching. Amanda's outburst wasn't just offensive, it was evidence. At 9:02 a.m., 2 men from economy stood up and walked toward row 1. They didn't wear uniforms, but they wore the confidence of authority. Amanda turned as they approached. "Ma'am," one said, "we're going to ask you to come with us. You're being temporarily detained for questioning upon landing." "What? Why?" Amanda shouted. "This is harassment." The other man showed a badge, federal. "Please remain calm," Amanda snapped. "He's the one who should be questioned. He's the fraud. This is reverse racism." She turned to the cabin. "They're protecting him because he's black." Gasps rippled through the rows. The crew froze. Elijah stood slowly, turned to her, and said only 5 words. "You messed with the wrong one." What Amanda didn't know, what no one knew, was that Elijah had orchestrated this entire flight. For weeks, ICEFIRE had been building a file. Amanda's name had surfaced again and again. Offshore accounts tied to medical trials in unregulated regions, sudden disappearances of whistleblowers, leaked footage showing test subjects in unapproved facilities. But nothing stuck. Nothing until now, until Amanda exposed herself, voluntarily, in front of 50 witnesses and 5 cameras. But just as Elijah thought the mission was done, something shifted. The pilot's voice crackled through the intercom. "We've received a directive for an emergency landing. Please remain seated." Elijah's eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. He tapped a small device in his ear. "What changed?" he asked. The response came fast and sharp. "Abort. There's a second threat on board. Not Amanda. There's another operative. They know who you are." Elijah turned slowly, scanning the rows. And then he saw him. A man in seat 3C, pale, no expression, just staring, unblinking, watching Elijah, not Amanda. Elijah's blood turned cold. This wasn't just a sting. This was a trap. Amanda wasn't the target. He was. ICEFIRE had been compromised. The man in 3C had no luggage, no ID on the manifest, nothing registered on the passenger list. Elijah tapped his earpiece again. "Confirm seat 3C. Seconds passed. Then, "No record. He's not supposed to be there." Elijah moved slowly. He turned back to Amanda, who was now shaking in her seat. "You weren't the real problem," he said. "You were the distraction." The flight attendant approached. "We need to secure the cabin," she said, panic in her voice. The man in 3C stood up, calm, casual. He reached into his coat. Elijah stepped into the aisle. "Everyone down!" he shouted. Passengers screamed. A child cried. The man in 3C pulled out a badge. Not ICEFIRE, not the FBI, a sigil Elijah hadn't seen in years, a black triangle over a red serpent. the mark of VANTA, a rogue intelligence syndicate believed to be disbanded. Elijah's past was catching up, fast. The man spoke for the first time. "Hello, Elijah, we've been watching you." Elijah's pulse thundered. Amanda was forgotten. The flight had become a battlefield. Vanta had resurfaced, and they were inside his operation, Icefire's top agent, exposed at 30,000 feet, with no backup, no weapon, and no escape. Elijah took one step forward. The man smiled. "Careful," he said. "There's more than one of us here." Behind him, two more passengers stood up simultaneously. One from row 6, one from the rear, both wearing the same ring, Vanta symbols. Elijah was outnumbered, outflanked, and every second counted. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a thumb-sized beacon, and pressed it. Silent alarm activated. 3 red dots blinked to life on his chest. He was marked, tracked, live, and the entire world was about to know what was happening on Flight 237. The cabin lights flickered, the plane jolted, and then blackout. Darkness swallowed the cabin. Passengers screamed, oxygen masks dropped. Elijah didn't flinch. He'd trained for this. Chaos was a language he understood. The emergency lights blinked to life, painting the cabin red. He pivoted, eyes scanning. 3C was empty. The man had vanished. Row 6 and the rear, also empty. Vanta operatives were in motion. Elijah activated thermal vision from his contact lens. 3 figures glowed, moving fast, toward the cockpit. They weren't here for him. They were here to take the plane, hijack, broadcast, blame Icefire, discredit the agency, trigger global panic. Elijah dashed forward, low and fast. Crew tried to stop him. He flashed a code, level 9 clearance. They stepped aside. He reached the galley, slammed open a hidden panel. Inside, his gear, a small black case with a biometric lock. It clicked open. Inside, compact taser, flash module, encrypted comms stick. He clipped the taser to his wrist, activated the comms. Icefire 1 reporting. Vanta hijack in progress. Engaging now. Send Shadow Cell to intercept at landing. Static. Then a voice. Confirmed. No survivors on their side. Elijah moved. Fast, precise, silent. He reached the cockpit bulkhead. Locked, reinforced. He placed the flash module on the latch. 5 seconds. Boom. Light exploded. Door swung open. Inside, pilot unconscious. Co-pilot bleeding. The man from 3C holding the controls. The other 2 standing guard. Elijah rolled in. 1 swift move. Taser launched. First guard dropped. Second lunged. Elijah ducked, swept his legs. Crack. Skull hit steel. Only 3 Cs remained. He turned. Cold eyes. "You're too late," he hissed. "This bird's already flying dead." Elijah glanced at the dashboard. Autopilot disengaged. Manual override locked. Altitude dropping. Speed increasing. Elijah lunged. They clashed. Hands, elbows, blood. Elijah slammed the man's head into the console. Sparks flew. Alarms blared. Elijah grabbed the yoke. Pulled. Plane groaned. Engines howled. Too fast. Too steep. He gritted his teeth. Pulled harder. Inches from stall. Then lift. Altitude stabilized. Cabin gasped. The man slumped, unconscious. Elijah secured the cockpit. Locked override. Sent coordinates. Icefire agents waiting on ground. Vanta cell. Neutralized. But the damage was done. News would spread. Icefire would be exposed. Amanda, handcuffed, sat shaking in row 1. "What the hell are you?" she whispered as Elijah walked past. He looked at her. Calm, cold. "The reason you're still alive." No one clapped when the plane landed. No one spoke. Agents stormed in. Amanda taken. The man from 3C bagged and tagged. Elijah disappeared before cameras could roll. No headlines bore his name. No medals given. But that day, at 30,000 feet, one black man changed everything. Not with violence, not with vengeance, but with precision, patience, and undeniable power. Justice didn't knock, it sat in 1A,